All right, here's Job 23, verse 1. We're starting in Job 23, verse 1. And if you skip Chewable number 2 and you're just starting with number 3 into part 2, you go to the middle of your Bible and you open up, and if you go back a little bit toward Genesis, you'll hit Job pretty quick. So we're in Job chapter 23, and what's going on here is Job is again, I'm not going to give the whole introduction because that was in part 1, so go watch that if you want that. But Job is a very wealthy man. He's very blessed. And God says to Satan, that's in part 1 too, God says to Satan, why don't you can do anything you want to him. We're going to test his faith. I'm going to use you, Satan. See, Satan is not abusing God. God is using Satan. There's a difference. God is always in control, and it's only for his purposes. I mean, Satan might be like a frothing pit bull, dangerous and whatever, but he's on a leash held by the Incredible Hulk. Comparatively, he's nothing. He was created by God, completely powerless in his presence, and only has power for a time. And that's at the end of the Bible when God throws Satan into hell. There's nothing Satan can do about it. So, but that's what's happening. And so Satan has a free reign with Job to do whatever he wants, make his life as miserable as possible. And Satan does his worst. Satan. He goes, if you go back in Job 1, and boy, I do want to go back there and show you something else besides what I showed you in part 1. In Job 1, let's see, go to 121, and boy, here's something to mark in your Bible, circle, write it on a little piece of paper, put it up in your mirror, and read it every day. If you're having trouble in these times, being encouraged, here's a good spot. But it says, after he heard of all the stuff that was going on, he says in Job 1:20, it says, Job arose, tore his robe, shaved his head, which were all signs of grief. It would be like us putting on, those were cultural signs of grief. It was like us putting on black robes and going to a funeral or something, or black clothes. And he fell to the ground and worshipped. Now that's fascinating. What was a godly man's, what was a blameless, upright, fearing God, shunning evil man's response? What is that kind of person's response to grief? Worship. Falling down and worshiping God and saying, so these are worshipful words. Remember, what comes out of the mouth is an overflow of the heart. Talked about that in part 1. Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. That's in Job 1:21. See, the Lord has taken away things from all of us in the last month. Our freedom to move about, just restrictions that are traumatic, more traumatic for some than others, but that's always been the case. Life is always like that. Some people are in worse shape than others temporarily. But you have passages that are in like 1 Peter 5:10 and Romans 8:18 and in 2 Corinthians 4, where it says that what we're suffering now, if we're believers, what we're suffering now is nothing compared to the glory that's coming. And it's interesting that in Matthew 24, which will be another one of these future chewables, we'll go through Matthew 24, which will lead us back to Daniel, actually. But in Matthew 24, what's happening now, God puts in the category of birth pains, a woman's birth pains. Now, obviously, I've never experienced those, but my wife has, and she's told me about them, and other women have. I've heard them talk about it. And so what I always hear, is it's an increase in frequency and intensity, right? They get closer together, and they get more painful the further you go. And that's part of what we're feeling is these diseases that are running rampant, the earthquakes, the wars, they're going to get more intense. They're going to get wider spread, global. They're going to get wider spread, and they're going to get nastier. They're going to get more harmful. There'll be more deaths, and they'll be more contagious than they even are. And so that's all coming. But all of that to say this is that it's an opportunity, it's a test, it's an opportunity for us to, when you don't know what's going on, you know God does. And that's what Job says here. He says, he's worthy. He's worthy of being worshipped no matter whether he gives or takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And so I hope that's how you're living. And if not, send me a note and I'll tell you more and show you more and you can read. And by the way, I'm going to title this little chewable. I'm going to probably start putting titles on these little chewables. But this is what should you do in life's darkest moments, you know? And one of the longer Bible talks on the YouTube channel, I mean, I'm calling them Bible talks. They're sermons in church, but they're Bible talks. And between 30 and 60 minutes, so they're not 10-minute long, they're or 15-minute long, they're 3, 4 times that long sometimes. And I did one on Job 23. So if you want to know more about this and this interests you, go there and go to the other videos, the longer videos on the YouTube channel. And one of them is called What Should I Do in Life's Darkest Moments? And a lot of people are experiencing a lot of what they feel that is. And so there's more there. But okay, so in Job, somehow I got to Ezekiel. I got to get back. Hold on. Where'd I go? So Job 23. And boy, there might be a part 3 to this because it's just fun to talk about because Job is in a lot of the situation that we're in. It's Job is his wife. His wife turns on him. All of this is taken away from him, and the last thing that happens really before his friends come and start bugging him says his wrong-minded friends. We can have friends that you've been like that. You've been a bad friend to people at times, I'm sure, and so that his friends were, it's not like they were evil. They were concerned about Job, but they were wrong-minded about it. They believed some wrong things. Your belief determines your behavior. All of us, all the time. That's why some of us worry, is because we've replaced our focus on God with focus on our circumstances, and your circumstances reveal that sometimes. That's why it says in Colossians 3:1 and 2, you're supposed to set your mind on things above and not here. I mean, we're citizens of heaven, not of earth, if we belong to the Lord. But Job's wife turned on him. In one verse, it says that she told him to curse God and die. Wow. We put Bible verses on bumper stickers and, coffee mugs and ties. I've never seen that one. I mean, curse God and die. I should put that on the back of my car and make people ask questions. It should be interesting. But all 10 of his children died. Satan killed all of them. His ability to he lost his job. What we would call these layoffs that are going on, he lost his job. His raiders, he was a farmer, a shepherd. The raiders stole his pirates, basically land pirates, stole his thieves, stole his flock, which was his ability to be wealthy. So he has no ability to do any of that anymore. His health is taken away from him. Some sort of nasty disease, boils and other things that were very, very uncomfortable. And you can read about that, if you want to. But and then his friends come and visit him in the hospital, basically, after his wife has told him to curse God and die and is not around. And the whole book between Job 2 and 41 is this conversation between him and these friends who are, Job is saying all sorts of amazing things. But I'm just going to read. I'll tell you what, in order to make this chewable, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read. I think we're going to focus on verses 1 through 14. That's a good chewable part. And I just want you to listen. I'm going to read it. And I'm reading out of the New King James Version. There's a lot of good, I'd recommend if you're wondering what kind of Bible, the old NIV, the newer NIVs there's some compromises there that I'm not comfortable with and don't appreciate. But the NIVs, if you go to the copyright dates in the front, the old NIVs that are published before 1985, that's one of the best English translations of the Old Testament. Really poetic and wonderful and accurate. I'm reading out of the New King James, which is a great one. It's what I usually teach and study out of for a lot of reasons. The ESV is a good blend in the New and Old Testament of the Hebrew and Greek accuracy. A lot of people use that. The New American Standard, of course, is really good, especially in the New Testament. It's kind of wonky to read sometimes, but it's very accurate. And we can do another one of those chewables later on that. But I'm going to read these 14 verses out of the New King James, and if you have a different version, you can compare and see what you think about that. But this particular translation, I really like it. I think it captures the sense of it and has all the important words very accurately portrayed. And he says, so Job is answering. It says, this starts with Job answered and said. Now, remember, it's a back and forth with his friends. And Job 3 all the way up through 22, he's kind of listening. He doesn't say a whole lot. He says some, but here is where he really loses his cool, kind of. And he blows up on his buddies. And he says, I've kind of had enough of you. What you're saying is dumb. It's not accurate. And he says, even today, I'm just going to read 1 through 14, and then in part 3, we'll go through those 14 verses, okay, and how that applies to you sitting in your house during all this COVID stuff. Job answered and said, even today my complaint is bitter and my hand is listless because of my groaning. Oh, that I knew where I might find him, that I might come to his seat. I would present my case before him and fill my mouth with arguments. I would know the words which he would answer me and understand what he would say to me. Would he contend with me in his great power? No, but he would take note of me. There the upright could reason with him, and I would be delivered forever from my judge. Remember judge from James 5? In the previous Chewable, I would be delivered forever from my judge. I'll talk about that in part 3. Look, I go forward, verse 8. Look, I go forward, but he is not there, and backward, but I cannot perceive him. When he works on the left hand, I cannot behold him, and when he turns to the right hand, I cannot see him. But he knows the way that I take, and when he's finished testing me, I shall come forth as gold. My foot has held fast to his steps. I have kept his way and not turned aside. I have not departed from the commandment of his lips. I have treasured the words of his mouth more than my necessary food. But he is unique, and who can make him change? And whatever his soul desires, that he does. For he performs what is appointed for me, and many such things are with him. Wow. Isn't that a blessing? Okay, like you're a blessing too. Thank you. I have a friend of mine that used to tell me all the time, and many, that I'm a blessing. And I looked it up once, and the word means reflection. I wondered if I really was, or if it was something he was just saying. And when a person is a blessing in the Bible, they're reflecting one of God's attributes, one of the communicable ones. We're never going to be divine or whatever, but he's it's reflecting one of God's. We're made in his image. Lost people can be blessings. They can be loving and joyful and peaceful and patient and kind, and they can do good things. It just doesn't get credited to them without Jesus Christ. Working your way to heaven by doing good is a tragic thing, because it's kind of like gambling. It's like putting money in the casinos at, in the slots at Las Vegas. It just keeps, every once in a while you might have a small victory, but if you keep doing it, you will lose. It will cost you everything, and you'll wind up with nothing, and all you'll have done is waste your time. And the house will have the money. The Lord never loses, but he invites you not to lose too by being attached to him. Okay, we'll see you in part 3. Bye.